AITA for threatening my sil to kick her out over an argument. Little backstory before going to the main thing. I, 27M, have a brother, 31M, who has a wife, 29, and son, 7. Our parents were divorced, so after their passing, I inherited everything from my mother and also half from father. But my brother only inherited the remaining half from father. Shortly after inheriting my mother's house, I was quickly approached by one guy who wanted to buy the house. He already made an offer to my mother, but she didn't want to sell because she was living there and didn't want to leave. It's a 4-story house that is huge AF. Still had some rooms unfinished and I didn't really want to live there. So I cashed out and bought a studio apartment in the city where I was working. My brother was renting a place in the very same city. Forward to the recent times. My brother is an engineer and had a solid job until the beginning of 2020 where he got fired. Since then he still hasn't found a job in his field. He started eating through his savings and asked me if I wanted to buy his half of the house property. Dad's house is smaller, but way nicer. Those last years of his life, he invested lots of money into the house and made a pool outside. I wanted to buy it off from him even before he offered it and planned to pay more than what he asked me. So I obviously accepted since it was a great deal and I somewhat helped him. Summer 2021. I guess my brother was running low on cash because he said that he can't afford the rent anymore. So he asked me if he could move in Dad's house. I wasn't using it that much so I let them move in. 2022. I've been staying at the Dad's house for the past month or so. Because I have some people working on demolishing some old buildings on the property. I get up early every day so I can be with the workers. I noticed that my nephew never has a breakfast before going to school and also his parents never pack him anything. I asked him if he eats anything at the school and he said that eats an empty croissant that he gets from the shop. Felt bad so I started making him a breakfast and packing him a sandwich for school, along with some snacks and a drink. I've been doing it for the past 2 weeks. Yesterday, his mother saw him eating and what I packed for him. She said, "This explains why nephew isn't hungry after school," and left the kitchen after giving me this weird look. After nephew left, she came back and lashed out at me, saying that he'll get fat, that I shouldn't give him junk food, that I made her bad in her son's eyes and that I don't have her permission to do it. I told her that she is neglecting him and that I will only stop it once she starts doing it. She then screamed at me, called me names and told me to go back to my shithole in city. Single quote dot. At this point I was fuming. So I threatened her that I will kick them all out if she doesn't get her shit together. Neighbor asked what was all the screaming about and after I told him, he said that I'm not a parent and that I should stay out of it. NTA. You certainly should not stay out of it. I would speak to brother about it. A child should have 3 meals a day at least. Sil has probably only noticed because he is not starving by the evening meal. Speak to bro. If they don't change, call CPS. CPS will visit and educate them. If they still refuse, they will act in the best interests of the child. WTF, why is she neglecting her child? Does Sil have a job? Do they pay rent? You have every right to kick them out, but I'm wondering who will hurt most. Sounds like your nephew will be worse off. NTA, but think about your next move carefully. Info. Why wasn't this discussed with your brother about the lack of breakfast and lunch? 2 weeks is a long time for you to never mention and somehow make lunch for your nephew without them noticing. Hang on a bloody minute. He's 7 and they don't give him breakfast or lunch and he has a croissant to tide him over for the whole day until dinner. And what does that consist of? What the actual fuck planet it you're still on? Pretty sure I'm raising a bloody hobbit then, 'cause he eats second breakfast, snacks etc., lunch, afternoon snack, after school snack, dinner, supper, and he's 6. Well, maybe stomach of a hobbit, but he's over 4 feet tall. How the hell is he supposed to get the energy to do his work at school, let alone playing with his friends and developing? The poor bugger must be absolutely starving, and bollocks whether she thinks you should get involved. This needs raising to child services. Or whatever the non-UK version is. Also, if your brother doesn't believe you, record the conversation, video, audio etc., and show it to him. He's being neglectful by burying his head in the sand. Thank you for stepping up and parenting where they clearly aren't. Glad he's got you to help him, but you definitely need to keep an eye on this, and also don't back down from your Sil's attitude. You're doing them a favor by letting them live there and just paying bills. Also, 0.100% NTA. NTA. She is starving her child and is something worth mentioning to your brother to see if he knows. If he does, it warrants contacting the school counselor to keep an eye on the kid or CPS. She is a guest in your house. They don't pay rent, I gather from your post, and are mooching off your goodwill. I think she's gotten a little too comfy if she is willing to yell at you in your home to go back to the city. It might be time to talk to your brother about a deadline. It might motivate him to find a job, even if it's outside his field, and get his own place. NTA. Please keep packing lunch for your nephew. Obviously his parents don't care if he was hungry. Flushed. She's starving her child, and somehow that's her fault, and making her look bad. Flushed. Call child services PLS. He's 7. She needs to wake up, make him food, pack a lunch, drive him to school, and pick him up. What else is she doing? Sleeping? Do they pay you rent? NTA. It's totally your business if a member of your family living in your house isn't feeding your nephew. NTA. They should move out and leave the kid behind with you. Food is such a basic. My parents failed to take care of this need when I was a kid. I had such trouble in school because of it. I still have a eating disorder and struggles with my weight. NTA. Your neighbor is dead wrong because you do not ignore child neglect. Sil has issues that your brother needs to address, or else CPS will show up one day. Probably the day after you wind up calling them. Based off her reaction to her hungry child being fed. Proper growth and productivity requires fuel via nutrition. You showed great instincts with your nephew. NTA. She is literally starving a growing child. A kid being purposely denied food so he doesn't gain weight is most definitely everyone's business, and should be reported to child services too. NTA. Don't be afraid to kick them out just because they are family. Because 9 times out of 10 these people will take advantage of you the most. I'd say talk to your brother first, and if he also sides with her, then adios. NTA. Just want to say, thank you for sticking up for that poor kid. He's old enough to remember your kindness. And remember what you're doing for him. For what it's worth, feeding a child 3 meals a day won't make him fat. Holy shit. Unless you're packing him slices of cake, 3 pudding cups, and one of those Mean Girls protein bars that make you gain weight. He absolutely needs the calories to, grow. NTA. What the actual hell? Your brother and Sil are neglecting their child. A croissant is not a meal. It's barely a snack. Of course the poor kid is starving when he gets home. I'm not even going to mention the level of entitlement coming from your Sil. Kick them out. Call CPS and offer to take in your nephew if you have the means. This poor child doesn't deserve this level of neglect, and the parents should be held accountable. NTA. If she believed that one type of food should be excluded from his breakfast, she should have said that. NTA. Someone needs to look out for this poor kid. What does your brother have to say? Is the nephew underweight? Neglect is a form of abuse, and if you feel he is not being cared for, alert the proper authorities. Does the brother have a job yet? Seems like he's mooching off you. NTA. At all. I can't think of whose permission you would need to feed a starving child. I would absolutely get CPS involved. They are abusing your nephew. Her next complaint will be that nephew isn't doing well at school. It is hard to concentrate when you are hungry. NTA. I would just feel sorry for your nephew if his leech parents get them deservedly kicked out. NTA. She is starving her child and is something worth mentioning to your brother to see if he knows. If he does, it warrants contacting the school counselor to keep an eye on the kid or CPS. She is a guest in your house. They don't pay rent, I gather from your post, and are mooching off your goodwill. I think she's gotten a little too comfy if she is willing to yell at you in your home to go back to the city. It might be time to talk to your brother about a deadline. It might motivate him to find a job, even if it's outside his field, and get his own place.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.